My name is Sophie Chen, and I'm 26 years old living here in Chicago, Illinois, where I work as a freelance graphic designer, creating beautiful things that nobody in my family has ever bothered to really look at because for my entire life, I've lived in the shadow of my older brother Ryan, who is 30, and has always been the golden child ever since he started playing varsity football in high school and got a full scholarship to Northwestern for business and graduated summa cum laude with his MBA and landed this amazing job at Harrison Tech Solutions, where he's been climbing the corporate ladder faster than anyone expected while I struggled to build my creative career and find my place in a family that measures success only by salary figures and job titles and social status, which is why when I met Michael 2 years ago at a coffee shop near Millennium Park, where I was sketching, and he was reading the Wall Street Journal, I never imagined that this quiet, thoughtful man who listened to my dreams about starting my own design studio and who supported my artistic vision would become the love of my life and my fiancé, even though my family barely knows him, because his work requires constant travel, and the few times they've met him they were polite, but distant, treating him like just another one of my boyfriends who probably wouldn't last long anyway. And for the past year, Michael and I have been planning our dream wedding for October 15th at this beautiful venue, overlooking Lake Michigan with 200 guests, and a reception featuring local artists work as centerpieces. Because Michael understands that creativity matters to me and wants our wedding to reflect who we are as people, not just some generic celebration, and everything was perfect until 2 weeks ago when Ryan got promoted to vice president at his company, and my parents called an emergency family meeting to announce that we needed to postpone my wedding because Ryan's promotion was such a huge deal that the family needed to throw him a celebration party the same weekend, and Mom actually said that his success was more important than just a wedding, since weddings happen all the time, but career milestones like this are once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and when I tried to explain that we had been planning this for a year and that all our guests had already made arrangements, and that this was supposed to be the most important day of my life, Dad just shrugged and said I was being selfish and dramatic, and that a good sister would want to celebrate her brother's achievements, and that I could always get married the next month. But when I started crying, Mom rolled her eyes and said I needed to grow up and learn that sometimes you have to sacrifice for family, which is when I realized that my family would never see me as anything more than an afterthought compared to Ryan's golden boy status. And that's when I made a decision that would shock them all when I told Michael what my family had demanded. He was quiet for a long moment and then asked me what I wanted to do. And when I said I still wanted to marry him on October 15th, no matter what, he smiled and said, then that's exactly what we'll do. And so instead of postponing our dream wedding, we decided to elope with just my best friend Sarah as our witness at the beautiful lakefront venue we had already booked. And when I called my parents to tell them we were going ahead with the ceremony anyway, my mother's voice turned ice cold as she said that if I was going to be so selfish and ungrateful, then none of them would be attending, and that I was making a terrible mistake choosing some man over my own family. And Dad got on the phone and said he was disappointed in me for being so stubborn, and that Ryan's promotion party was happening whether I liked it or not, and that I would regret missing such an important family milestone for what he called a meaningless ceremony. And so on October 15th, while Michael and I exchanged vows surrounded by fall flowers, and Sarah cried happy tears, my family was across town at some fancy hotel ballroom, celebrating Ryan's new vice president title. And according to the social media posts I saw later, Mom spent the entire evening telling everyone who would listen about Ryan's incredible achievements and his bright future, while also complaining to her sister about her ungrateful daughter who eloped because she couldn't handle not being the center of attention for once. And during the party, Mom actually called me while I was cutting my wedding cake with my new husband and said she was embarrassed to tell people that her daughter had run off to get married, like she had something to hide, And couldn't I have at least waited until after Ryan's celebration was over, and when I tried to explain that Michael was actually a wonderful man who might surprise them if they gave him a chance, she laughed and said she was sure he was very nice, but that didn't change the fact that I was probably marrying another struggling artist type who would never be able to provide for me the way Ryan could provide for his future family. And meanwhile, at Ryan's party, he was giving speeches about his promising career trajectory and accepting congratulations from family, friends, and business colleagues while basking in the golden child spotlight he had always enjoyed. And I posted our wedding photos on Instagram showing Michael and me dancing and laughing and looking completely happy, which got dozens of likes and comments from friends saying we looked perfect together. But what I didn't know was that someone at Ryan's party was scrolling through social media and recognized my new husband's face at Ryan's promotion party while he was still basking in congratulations. And giving his third speech about climbing the corporate ladder, his colleague, Jason, walked up to him with his phone in hand, showing him my wedding photos from Instagram, and said, "Hey, isn't this your sister?" And Ryan glanced at the screen expecting to see me with some random guy. But instead, his face went completely white as he stared at a photo of me dancing with Michael Harrison, who was not only Ryan's new CEO, but the very man who had personally promoted him to vice president just 2 weeks earlier. And Jason kept talking obliviously, saying, "Wow, your sister married Michael Harrison. That's incredible. He's like the most successful tech entrepreneur in Chicago." And Ryan grabbed the phone, scrolling frantically through all our wedding photos, while his brain tried to process that his little sister, who he thought was marrying some broke artist, had actually married the billionaire CEO of his own company. And the party went dead silent as Ryan stood there staring at the photos, and Jason realized something was wrong and asked if Ryan was okay. And that's when Ryan's voice cracked as he called me right there in the middle of his own celebration party and demanded to know why I had never told them I was dating Michael Harrison. And I could hear the panic in his voice as he realized that he and our parents had spent weeks dismissing and insulting the wife of one of the most powerful men in the city. And I calmly explained that Michael had specifically asked me to keep our relationship private because he didn't want any workplace complications or for people to think he was showing favoritism, and that I had respected his wishes even when it meant enduring our family's assumptions about my choice in men. And Ryan kept stammering about how this changed everything and how they never would have treated me that way if they had known. And I pointed out that the fact that they only cared about treating me well now, that they knew my husband's net worth, said everything they needed to know about their values. And Ryan started begging me to understand that they had made a mistake and that Mom and Dad would want to apologize and meet Michael properly. And I could hear the party guests murmuring in the background as word spread that Ryan's sister had married their CEO. And suddenly everyone at his promotion celebration was talking about me instead of him. And Ryan realized that his position at work could be completely compromised if Michael thought his family had disrespected his new wife. And when Mom got on the phone, her voice was shaking as she begged me to bring Michael over for dinner so they could welcome him to the family properly. But I told her that would only happen under very specific conditions. I told Mom that if she wanted to meet Michael, she needed to first publicly apologize to me on social media for dismissing my wedding and treating me like my happiness didn't matter. And she needed to acknowledge that she had always prioritized Ryan over me, and that this pattern had to stop permanently. And after 3 days of family conferences and Ryan panicking about his job security, Mom posted a long Instagram apology admitting that she had been wrong to ask me to postpone my wedding and that she was proud of me for following my heart. And then she called begging me to schedule a dinner so they could meet Michael properly. And when we finally agreed to come over for Sunday dinner, the atmosphere was so thick with tension you could cut it with a knife, because Mom had spent 2 days cooking elaborate dishes she had never made before, and Dad kept rehearsing conversation topics about business and economics as if he was preparing for a job interview while Ryan paced around the house, practicing how to act like a loving, supportive brother, instead of the jealous competitor he had always been. And when Michael and I walked in wearing our casual clothes, Mom practically fainted, because she had expected some flashy billionaire stereotype, but Michael looked like the same quiet, thoughtful man he had always been, except now they were hanging on his every word and treating him like royalty while walking on eggshells, terrified of saying the wrong thing. And Dad kept asking Michael about his business philosophy and investment strategies, while Mom insisted on showing him photo albums of my childhood art projects that she had previously dismissed as hobbies. And Ryan was the most pathetic of all, suddenly calling me his amazing little sister and talking about how proud he had always been of my creativity when just weeks earlier he had supported postponing my wedding for his party. And Michael was polite but distant throughout the entire dinner because I had told him exactly how they had treated me, and he could see right through their sudden transformation from indifferent relatives to desperate admirers. And the whole evening felt like watching people audition for roles in a play they had never rehearsed, and I found myself enjoying their discomfort while also feeling sad that it had taken my husband's wealth and power to make them finally show me respect instead of genuine love for who I was as a person. And just when I thought the evening couldn't get more awkward, Michael cleared his throat and said he had an announcement that would affect everyone at the table. Michael looked around the table at my nervous family and announced that he was launching the Harrison Foundation for Creative Arts with a $50 million endowment, and that he had chosen me as the executive director, which would make me responsible for distributing grants to artists and creators across the Midwest and developing programs to support emerging talent, and that my starting salary would be equal to what Ryan made as vice president, which meant I was no longer the struggling artist daughter, but a successful professional in my own right. And you could have heard a pin drop as my family processed that I had not only married a billionaire, but was about to become a major figure in the arts community. And Michael continued by saying that he valued family loyalty above all else, and had been carefully observing how everyone treated each other, and that he believed strongly in supporting people who had always believed in themselves even when others doubted them. And the message was clear that he had seen their treatment of me and was not impressed. And over the following months, everything changed as Ryan finally found the courage to give me a genuine apology, admitting that he had always been jealous of how easily I had found love and creative fulfillment, while he had spent years grinding away trying to prove himself, and that he was sorry for supporting Mom and Dad when they tried to make me postpone my wedding. And Mom and Dad started making real efforts to understand my work and attend my gallery showings and ask about my projects, not because they feared Michael, but because they realized they had missed out on knowing their own daughter and Ryan. And I slowly rebuilt our relationship as siblings instead of competitors. And he even started buying original art from local artists after I educated him about supporting the creative community. And 6 months later, as I sit in my new office at the foundation, planning our first major grant cycle, I realize that getting married on my own terms despite my family's objections was the moment I finally found my voice and learned that my happiness and dreams matter just as much as anyone else's, and that real love means having someone who supports your vision even when your own family doesn't, and that sometimes the people who truly see your worth are the ones who choose you, not the ones who are obligated to love you by blood. And most importantly, I learned that you should never let anyone convince you to postpone your joy for their convenience, because life is too short to wait for other people's permission to be happy.